Now, it might feel like we've been talking about the possibility of Lonzo Ball breaking out for the last 5 years, but that's purely just because of the spotlight that he and the Ball family have been under for such a long period of time. And after moving from LA to New Orleans, Lonzo has had his healthiest season yet and just put up the best numbers of his career in year 3. Now, those numbers don't scream all-star or the superstar player that LeVar promised his son would be, but it's not easy to reach these lofty heights that some people had pinned for Lonzo when he hadn't been able to stay healthy for the first 2 years of his career, playing in a pretty bad situation from a basketball standpoint, and entering his 3rd year, he was able to stay healthy for longer and have a bigger role and improved every aspect of his game. Most notably his shooting, as he went from a liability in his 1st year to an okay shooter in his 2nd year to a pretty damn solid shooter in his 3rd year. Now that's pretty much all you can ask him to do, and he's done just that. But I think because of how long we've been hearing about Lonzo, it feels like he has been in the league for a lot longer than he actually has, when in reality he's played around the equivalent of just over 1 season worth of games in his first 2 years in LA, and then finally got moved to New Orleans and had a bit of a breakout year. But when you compare this to other guards, there's still plenty of reason to be optimistic about Lonzo having a breakout season, and that it's not too late for him to do so. Now let's just compare him to another former Lakers number 2 overall pick, D'Angelo Russell. Now Russell averaged 15 and 5 in his 3rd year in the NBA and first for his new team, the Brooklyn Nets. Exactly the same scenario as Lonzo, basically 2 years in LA, after being drafted the number 2 overall pick, then moved to another team, and in their 3rd years they averaged pretty similar numbers. Different kind of players, but you get where I'm heading with this. And then heading into his 4th year, D'Lo had a breakout season, averaging 21 and 7 with an increased responsibility and an increased confidence. He took over and now he's an all-star kind of player. He was an all-star that year, and that's kind of the category he's seen as. And like I alluded to, Lonzo just hasn't been all that healthy, and you can't underestimate that when trying to evaluate where he should be at and where he currently is, because those 100 games or whatever that he's missed over the course of 3 years is the difference between him being at this point in his development and De'Aaron Fox or someone like that being ahead in their development. Now, I'm not saying Lonzo should be at De'Aaron Fox's level or would be if he wasn't injured, but you have to take that into account, and now that he's finally had an off-season to get healthy, it's going to be a difference maker. Now, before I go any further, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel, that would be greatly appreciated. I'm trying to hit 20k as soon as possible, and doing those things really helps, so that would be much appreciated. Now, getting back to that point about Lonzo getting healthy, it's not only about him getting healthy so he can play more games and get more reps at the NBA level, which are obviously going to be key factors to him getting better, but it's about him being able to work out, feel explosive, be in better condition, and work on his weaknesses over the off-season, which you can't really do to the same extent if you're in a moon boot or you're struggling from an injury and you're spending all that time rehabbing instead of working on your game and getting better, which is exactly what you have to do. Even though he's 23, you've still got a few years where you've got to get consistently better every year, and he hasn't had the chance to do so. But this offseason, he said, he's finally had the chance to get healthy, and he said this about his offseason: "I think I've got the ball more, and I've just had time to work on my game." Ball said of the difference between the 4 months in the bubble, we just kind of got thrown out there and started playing. This was my first offseason that I got to work on some things. I slowed down and get to my strengths and just worked on my game, and I think it's going to show this year. Now let's touch on the bubble, because Lonzo was bad, like terrible, awful. But he wasn't the only one. The Pelicans as a whole were terrible. I watched a vlog from Drew Holiday and they just didn't want to be there. Like, you could tell the energy was poor, and then they recorded them leaving and they were incredibly happy to be going. They seemed all smiles, and it looked like they were just waiting for the day where they could leave the bubble. And maybe that's kind of disheartening for Pelicans fans, but at the same time, these were very unique circumstances that you don't know how different people are going to react to that. And obviously the Pelicans and Lonzo didn't react positively, but that's fine. That happens. Hopefully that's not going to be a situation that comes around again. Although there's going to be a similar kind of situation this year, it's going to be different and they're more accustomed to it. So I think we won't have to worry about that as much. But before the bubble was what kind of gives me more hope for Lonzo as a player heading into this year, and it was the fact he was starting to shoot more frequently and more confidently than ever before. He scored double digits in 12 of the last 16 games of the season, including 2 of those games below double digits being 9-point games, And then even more impressive, he averaged a crazy 20 and 8 over the last 5 games of the season, shooting lights out from 3 on a really good percentage. Now, I don't know if that's sustainable, and I don't know if it needs to be, because his defense, his playmaking, everything that he adds to the team doesn't mean he's going to have to put up 25, 20 points a night, because he's just not that kind of player at the moment. But if he can give you 15 and 8 and the defense and the shooting, that's someone who's a really impactful player in this NBA. And what we've seen from preseason so far suggests to me that he's worked on those things that he's talked about. Like last year, he established he's a threat from deep. He's not just someone that you can leave open. He's genuinely going to pull that trigger. He's going to pull it off screens now. He's going to catch and shoot. He's going to come off the dribble. He's really shooting with confidence and doing so effectively. But even more impressively, he added a few touches to his game that we haven't seen before as efficiently in the preseason against Milwaukee. They like to do a drop coverage where obviously their center sits back and protects the rim because they think that's more of an important thing to protect as opposed to the mid-range, and it works for them. But Lonzo showed he has a mid-range game and hit a couple of those shots. But you can't just mention Lonzo and the jump he's going to make without mentioning Zion Williamson, because I think they are soon to have one of the best partnerships in the entire NBA if they don't already. We already saw them dominating the open floor during last year's regular season, running out in space, Lonzo throwing lobs off backdoor cuts, all of those things. Their chemistry is incredible, and now they've had a season to get together. They've obviously worked in the offseason, I imagine, together. They've worked on that chemistry, and it's already good. But in preseason, and particularly against the Bucks, it looked as good as ever. I think about 12 points were scored from the pick and roll, and it was just incredibly easy because Lonzo knows Zion's game so well, and Zion knows Lonzo's game so well. He sets the screen. The defender has to rush over to Lonzo because he can hit that 3 ball, and then Zion gets ahead of steam. Lonzo puts it in his pocket, and Zion attacks the rim. And pretty much any center standing flat-footed, facing Zion coming at full speed, is just going to be in trouble. There's no other way to put it. That's not something you want to face, and that's something that's going to result in points very consistently. For both of these players to have that kind of unstoppable, that kind of predictable but so effective, we've seen it with Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray, and if these two can develop that kind of play between each other and do it consistently, it doesn't just help Zion, it helps Lonzo, and it helps the team, and I've already seen it happen several times over one game against a very good defensive team, even without Giannis, and they were able to just shred them open with that play, and I expect to see more of it, and I hope to see more of it because it's just easy points, and if you can get 10 points, whether it be 10 points straight from Zion or a couple of points for Lonzo from 3-pointers or mid-range shots when the defenders have miscommunications and leads to both of them worrying about Zion and leaving Lonzo open, there's just so many possibilities, and with his new shooting stroke from the mid-range and from the 3-point line and Zion's ability to just get out and get to the rim, it makes it pretty much impossible to guard, and that's something that you really like to see a pair of players have, an unstoppable move. But even with everything I've said, the shooting, the passing, the partnership with Zion, the offseason, the mid-range game, everything that I've said, but even with everything I've said, there's still a reason that Lonzo doesn't get those 15 points a game that he's looking to break out into, and that's the kind of he's looking to get to. It's because he just doesn't get to the free throw line or the rim, and that's the difference between him being a Ja Morant to De'Aaron Fox or him being where he currently is, which is an above-average point guard, don't get me wrong, and still incredibly good at defense, playmaking, and a very solid shooter as well. He's overall a very solid point guard who I would have loved to have on my team, the Detroit Pistons, but currently he's not at that kind of level, and he's not seen as those kind of players because he just doesn't get to the rim or get to the free throw line enough. And Stan Van Gundy's talked about how he's been more aggressive in the first couple of preseason games. He's seen that development with him and Zion as a partnership, and I've seen him get to the rim with the defense focusing on Zion in that pick and roll and Lonzo being allowed a lane. And maybe it just takes him having a couple of easy layups, getting to the rim every game until he finally develops that confidence. Now, people thought his shot was going to be broken for his entire career. And then 2 years later, he's already a very, very solid shooter in the NBA, and he might get even better this year. So why would I believe that he can't become a better free throw shooter, that he can't get to the rim more often? Because he's got the moves. He's 6'6", he's athletic, he's got a handle, he's got a passing game as well, and a shooting game, which helps because it means that defenses can't sag off, so it leaves space there, and his pick and roll with Zion already creates a really nice option there as well to help him get to the rim. There's a number of reasons why he's going to be able to get to the rim if he chooses to do so, and he just needs to be more aggressive. He's playing with Eric Bledsoe as well, who I think might be able to get something out of him because he's really aggressive at doing so. And realistically, we've seen what Bledsoe's been able to do. What's he been able to average? 16 points a game on a good team in the Bucks, around that. Lonzo, why can't he do that? He's got the tools. He's a better shooter than Bledsoe. He's a better playmaker. He's just a better overall player. But Bledsoe's just better at getting to the rim. And I don't see anything other than just the aggression. I don't see anything other than the aggression. Am I missing something? I think Lonzo's got all the tools to be someone who can finish at the rim. He just chooses not to. And I'm not saying he needs to turn into a James Harden. That's not going to happen. But at the same time, it's the difference between him being where he is currently, like I said, a very good above average point guard, and him getting to that all-star level. I think getting to the rim is going to be a huge focus point this year, and I hope he can do it consistently because that's the difference, like I said. Other than that, if you did enjoy the video, a like would be greatly appreciated. Subbing to the channel really helps out as well. Other than that, I'll catch you next time. Bye.